So here we are, right in the midst of NASCAR's most chaotic time of the calendar year. It probably would have been ideal to release this video in mid to late July, as in the past week and a half we've seen tons of silly season dominoes topple one another. But hey, at least I have a chance at getting 100% accuracy, right? Who am I kidding, it'll probably be as bad as my Brad Keselowski prediction. So anyways, what drivers, teams, and manufacturer changes are on the horizon for the 2021 NASCAR season? It's time to find out, as it's time for the second annual Spotter's Guide on the NASCAR silly season. The first team to fill out its roster for 2021 is Team Penske. The triple threat of Joey Logano, Ryan Blaney, and Brad Keselowski all retain their respective cars and teams. The most intriguing piece to come from the extensions relied with Bad Brad himself. He got a one-year deal, and for the talents the Michigan native possesses, that was a rather unconventional length for a contract, especially for an established driver. I merely think this was more of a pass-off thing, as Brad Keselowski and Jeremy Bullins, they have a championship to win. They have really exceeded expectations. Therefore, it makes sense, as Brad Keselowski, he's not 100% sure what his future is going to look like, as we've seen sponsorship issues with the 2-car, but signing this one-year deal, he gets to remain competitive and see where this team goes long-term and just maybe win that second silver prize. So for the Penske camp, things shift to their affiliate team in the Wood Brothers. Matt DiBenedetto currently occupies the iconic 21. And so far, this has been a solid pickup for the Ford camp, as he's currently in the playoffs. He's had some good runs in that car. You'd think he'd be an almost shoo-in to lock down that ride for 2021. But as of recent, talks between DiBenedetto and the Wood Brothers have been put on pause. And now I'm going to say this, in my opinion, even if Matt DiBenedetto makes the playoffs and continues to perform well, he still has a very decent chance of filing for unemployment once the season ends in November. I mean, come on, let's just face it, he's on the wrong side of 20. He has minimal sponsorship, and he only has 2 career NASCAR wins to his name, all almost a decade ago. I'm not saying he isn't talented, after all, what he's done has been groundbreaking for drivers at the bottom of the grid. However, he is a very easily replaceable driver. It's very easy for a team like Wood Brothers to see how the Alex Bowman experiment is working at Hendrick Motorsports. To put it in simple terms, it hasn't exactly been a bed of roses. So what driver could be primed to take over the Motorcraft Ford Mustang? Undoubtedly, I look at breakout star Austin Cindric. This would effectively be the Ryan Blaney path, as Cindric would theoretically develop and hopefully win some races and move up to Penske when a seat becomes available. And this move makes much more sense with the Brad Keselowski one-year deal, as they can see where Cindric's progressing, and if they feel like he's ready, they can put him in that 2-car, which has an okay amount of sponsorship, and they can sit there and build around him full-time in the near future. Stewart-Haas Racing also has some decisions to make this upcoming fall. The organization has Kevin Harvick defying Father Time in that 4-car, with Cole Custer primed to race the 41 for the long-term future. That leaves the 10 and the 14 teams with potential for new opportunities. As a driver that once looked like he was on the hot seat, Aric Almirola recently put together his hottest stretch of his career. 10 top 10s in the last 11 races have him solidly above the cut line. Everything seems good on the driver's end, with the only plague coming potentially from sponsor Smithfield. Smithfield is definitely the most critical, especially if NASCAR keeps up with the random draw and those conspiracies end up being true. Honestly, I could see them scaling back sponsorship, maybe to 20 races, but I don't see it becoming detrimental to where Almirola gets ousted in favor of another driver. Clint Bowyer, much different story. He's had yet again another mediocre season. He's on the playoff bubble for the 3rd time in 4 campaigns. And from what I've heard, the consensus is Bowyer retires and joins the Fox booth to annoy the hell out of Mike Joy and Jeff Gordon every single week. But honestly, considering a recent quote from Bowyer, it seems like he wants to remain and retire at Stewart-Haas Racing. Plus, I just don't see him hanging up the helmet just yet. He has 1 or 2 good years left in the tank, maybe not winning years, but top 10, 15 type of seasons. Whether SHR re-signs him is a different story. Currently, you have 2 likely candidates for the number 14 Ford Mustang. You have the obvious choice in Chase Briscoe. He's a mature young rookie, and he could have a bit of sponsorship money in his back pocket. However, you have a wildcard driver looking to claw his way back into the Cup Series, Kyle Larson. Tony Stewart has expressed interest in the past. In fact, he wanted Larson to carry on the 14's winning legacy when he stepped away from driving. What he's gotten instead is 4 years of chill and drink a beer after getting a top 10. There's a good chance Smoke is sick of that, as I know he's an owner that wants to win. He's got Kevin Harvick, no doubt. Getting a guy like Kyle Larson could be that move to make the organization more competitive and be a bit balanced going into the future. Chances are at least one, potentially both, are going to end up in a Cup car next season. One will probably be in the 14, while the other could very well be on the affiliate car at Go Fast Racing. Switching from the Blue Oval, Toyota's roster was set after a domino effect saw Levine Family Racing close its doors. Erik Jones was released a few days later, pretty much guaranteeing the inevitable fate would happen. The older, more inconsistent version of Erik Jones will replace him in the team's number 20 entry. All that's needed to secure this ride is the crew chief for this car, which will likely be Jason Ratcliffe, and what sponsors will be on the hood. After that, expect this ride to be unchanged as Christopher Bell begins at the helm. As for Erik Jones, there's a lot of uncertainty as to where the soon-to-be fifth-year driver lands for 2021. DeWalt, Sport Clips, and possibly Reesers will likely remain with the 20. Right now, it's highly likely Jones will be driving a Chevrolet-powered car in the NASCAR Cup Series, despite what this Toyota PR stunt wants you to believe. In terms of his future, a lot of that will hinder on Bubba Wallace. After coming out of his shell and making mainstream headlines, major corporations want to get behind the sport's only African-American driver. Beats, Cash App, and Columbia to name a few. What looms large for Bubba is now the NASCAR equivalent of My Decision. Option 1 is to remain at Richard Petty Motorsports. It turns out Bubba has an ownership stake in the team, which was signed circa 2019. And when listening to his interviews, you can tell he has great support and he stands by his guys and gals on the 43. But honestly, I don't see Bubba Wallace re-signing with RPM unless they get a better technical alliance. Bubba's been pretty vocal about it since day one, and almost every person in the garage area knows Richard Petty Motorsports is a 20th place team at best. So where is Richard Petty Motorsports going to get those better cars? Possibly they could get a deal with Hendrick or Stewart-Haas, or join the dark side and become Furniture Row Racing 2.0. Richard Petty would be completely delusional if he made that decision. Be sure to leave a like so this 43 team has some good luck. The other major offer comes from Chip Ganassi Racing. The 42 team is starting to get liquidated, and I highly doubt they retain an aging Matt Kenseth. If NASCAR had a wins above replacement, he would probably be in the negatives, and there are just so many younger, more prime drivers like Bubba Wallace that could do so much better in that car. If you can get Jerry Baxter a part of this team, as well as the major sponsors, I think there's a good chance he's going to take this deal. It's a competitive ride, it's something to step above, and Bubba Wallace, we've seen, he can really put that car above where it is. I'd say it's definitely a stretch to say he's just going to start winning races, but I can definitely see him making the playoffs with this equipment. Just don't say that to the people that think Chip Ganassi sucks and Kyle Larson saved this organization. Another driver potentially going to the 42 could be Ross Chastain. Now, I'm going to be honest, his Xfinity season has been a bit disappointing. I know he's consistent and he's up there in the points, but he hasn't even won a race yet, and you look at Justin Haley and AJ Allmendinger, they've all won races this season. I definitely think the Chastain hype is dying down, and my Hendrick 48 prediction is aging like milk. But still, Chip Ganassi really wants to invest in Ross Chastain. However, for some odd reason, he doesn't want him in the 42. I mean, he could have easily just put him in the car instead of Kenseth, but that didn't happen. I think maybe the reason for that is, like I said, Nutrien Ag Solutions, or there's a potential possibility that he could replace Kurt Busch in a few years. I mean, you have Monster Energy, Gear Wrench, some good sponsors. Just maybe one of them see potential in Ross Chastain, and that's the reason why they've been holding him back. But if that is the case, there are some options for Ross Chastain to race in Cup next season, just not a part of Chip Ganassi Racing. A part of the Levine Racing liquidation, the GOAT of all full-time teams bought a second charter alongside its entry for the 77. And we've seen Ross Chastain, he's gotten some starts in the 77 currently, and there's a good chance that maybe this could be a technical car for Chip Ganassi. They can kind of groom him in without fully going all in, and then like I said, with a scenario with Kurt Busch or another replacement, he moves in if he starts winning races and he builds a lot more stability. Surprisingly, the number 48 at Hendrick Motorsports, the hype around that car has been rather quiet as of late. You'd think Rick Hendrick, he'd be an aggressive pursuer with a name such as Jones, Briscoe, and Wallace on the market. But then you remember, this isn't the HMS of the mid-2000s, early 2010s. We've seen it over the past few years. Mr. H is a smart businessman and he can pull off a lot of stuff in the financial world. But getting Chevrolet to practically fund an entire car for 2021 is a bit of an uphill battle. And honestly, seeing some of the circumstances with this team, that may be a saving grace. Right now, the 24, 48, and 88 all look like mid-pack teams right now. There's a good chance Hendrick Motorsports will only get 2 cars in a 16-driver playoffs. Something that's only happened once in this format's inception. Considering the state of the team, Hendrick downsizing to a 3-car operation is the logical choice. And the thing is, this doesn't have to be a permanent thing. There will be some big names on the market for 2022, and with the next-gen car possibly cheapening the cost to race and adding more sponsors, there could be a good chance they could easily upgrade back to 4 teams. Plus, you never know, that might be the one thing that saves Hendrick Motorsports from going the way of Richard Childress Racing and Roush Fenway. And then the final wild card is, what's going to happen to the Rheem sponsorship? Remember, Levine Family Racing closed up, and they had a very good ride, and I'm sure Rheem wants that again. I just don't see them settling for a team like Spire Motorsports or Front Row Motorsports, especially when you have Brandon Jones currently driving a Joe Gibbs Racing car. Very well, they could move their sponsorship elsewhere, and that could play a big role in maybe Hendrick Motorsports or Stewart-Haas Racing locking down a driver for the 2021 season. So there you have it, a lot of the big name opportunities on the horizon for the 2021 NASCAR season. And with that said, now it's time to predict the roster, starting with the 2021 Daytona 500. 30 plus drivers and teams racing for the championship. And now the question is, who will they be, or at least in my opinion. When looking at this first page, I mean, you've got a lot of typical names that we're going to see long term. And yes, I think Quinn Houff is going to return to the 00. After all, Starcom Racing, they're in it for the long haul, and I think they're going to want to develop around this guy. But obviously, I think Kyle Larson gets the 14. As much as I don't want to see it, I think Tony Sturdy wants a winner, and I think that's his best chance to get another guy alongside Harvick to make that 1-2 punch. And then I also think Brendan Poole returns, Chris Buescher, and then obviously Christopher Bell in the 20. The toughest decision out of this first page was definitely the status of the 21. I mean, Austin Cindric, he's done so well. He's put together a very good Xfinity season, but honestly, I don't see him getting a NASCAR Cup Series ride. I think Wood Brothers Racing and Ford play it conservative and stick with Matt DiBenedetto for one more year. After all, you have the next-gen car coming up, and I think it would be easier for Austin Cindric's first season to be with that car. Page number 2 is where things get a bit interesting. I think Chase Briscoe is going to race the 32 for Go Fast next season, as he's got some high point sponsorship most likely, and I think that's going to be a good move for Stewart-Haas Racing in developing Briscoe. And that's especially the case if you get Richard Boswell and possibly a stronger Stewart-Haas Racing technical alliance. And then we get to possibly the most intriguing move, as I think Eric Jones will replace Ryan Preece in the number 37 at JTG. You gotta think back, this team, they picked up Ricky Stenhouse Jr. and Brian Patty from Roush Fenway Racing. This is a great opportunity for them to grow, and I don't see Eric Jones getting many other opportunities that are very competitive. So I think you get the pairing of Eric Jones, Chris Gale on the 37. They could be a really competitive team, or at least a top 20 team in the upcoming season. And plus, he's in the Hendrick stable, which could make things interesting going forward. And then Bubba Wallace to the 42, I see him taking the more competitive offer at Chip Ganassi, and that frees up the 43, which Clint Bowyer will be driving starting with the 2021 Daytona 500. Richard Petty Motorsports, they have some sponsorship, and really, now they just need a stable veteran driver, and Clint Bowyer brings that to the table, and he also has some personality, so I see him being a focal piece in growing this team a little bit more and maybe getting that big alliance in the near future. And as for the 48, Jimmie Johnson's going to be back for 2021. Unfortunately, it's only going to be on a part-time basis. Seeing his recent tweets, I think Jimmie Johnson's going to go the Terry Labonte route as he's going to race part-time. I think he can get a decent amount of sponsorship because of the big name, and then possibly with some of his IndyCar races. I think that move will work out. And then for Hendrick Motorsports, you still have a veteran driver there, and he could possibly help the guys like Chase Elliott, Alex Bowman, and William Byron a little bit, but at the same time, he's not racing full-time. He's not wasting the resources, and Hendrick can devote fully to 3 cars for 2021. And then Spire Motorsports will be Corey LaJoie and Ross Chastain. The latter entry is going to be more on the side of Ganassi, as they're going to run the same engines and a lot of the cars that Kurt Busch and Bubba Wallace are going to race. So we'll get our first look at Ross Chastain in a full-time semi-competitive cup ride for the first time. And then finally, Alex Bowman is going to get Ally sponsorship full-time, and then Daniel Suarez is going to remain in the 96, this time with Rheem sponsorship helping to solidify Gaunt Brothers Racing. So under my predictions, that's going to be good finally seeing him get stability. Now watch as Rheem ends up buying that car and it goes to Brandon Jones instead. Wouldn't be surprised seeing Daniel Suarez get screwed over for the 3rd year in a row. So anyways, this is NRF signing out, and just remember, life's a beach and then you drive.